I'm ready. It's late November, and in the UK, the nights have definitely drawn in. It's dark at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and do not get me started on the mornings. It's pitch black until about 8 a.m. The day itself feels so much shorter, and that means there's the window of opportunity for exercise feels less. And let's be honest, it's so much harder, isn't it?
It is harder
to leave the house unless we absolutely have to. And it's going to be some time before the days are just that bit longer and lighter. And it feels like motivation dips as a result. How about you? How do you usually feel at this time of year?
I hear you, Sophie. Honestly, I know that we are designed to hibernate just a bit, and that's how I feel. I want to wear, like today, snuggly jumper. I want to put my onesie on. I want to stay in the house by the fire, and it is definitely such short days, and it feels like I feel like I'm trying to compress all of the things into a shorter amount of time because of that short day feeling. And so, I definitely also struggle with motivation in these colder, shorter days for sure. But what I tend to do is make sure I do my Pilates by the fire.
I spotted you, and then you'd done a reel, hadn't you, on Instagram? And I thought it was going to be just a quick bit of stretching, and it went on.
No.
It was 7 minutes at high speed.
That's hilarious. The thing is that as hard as it is to get started, as soon as I've started, because there's a sequence of 34 Pilates exercises, once I've done the first one, I'm like already approaching the second one. And so by the time you just get on a roll, and then you feel amazing. Do I count? Yeah, I do count.
Do you go backwards or fall upwards?
Well, no, I go upwards, but I count more the ones that I want to get done.
Yeah, it's like 100.
I definitely count the 100. Sometimes I miscount, undercount. 100, but I do.
Everyone needs to do that.
Yeah.
So just talking about motivation, I had to obviously look up what's the definition of motivation, and I found quite a nice description, which is a reason or reasons for acting or behaving in a particular way, which made me think that motivating yourself can be harder if you don't have a reason or a goal in mind, which makes a lot of sense to me. What do you think?
For sure. And it actually makes me think back to earlier episodes when we talked about your motivation to do Pilates. Was to get that amazing back for your wedding. And do you know what? It doesn't even matter how, what motivates you to start. It's what motivates you to stay that really matters. It's like me doing the 100 and then going, I feel the energy. I feel the command of my body. And then I stay with it. I keep going because it just makes you feel good. And I think that that's a big part of motivation is what it triggers in you. What feeling does it trigger in you? Because if it's not fun, if it's not enjoyable, if it hasn't got that social bit, whatever it is that connects you to it, then you're not going to stick with it. You're not going to feel the motivation. You're not going to want to get off your sofa and leave a glass of wine behind to come into the studio and do Pilates. So it has to really latch on to what's important to you. And I think the other bit about it really is the accountability too. So I do classes where, for me in my own body, because I do my own practice. You saw the reel. I honestly do. So I do a morning practice, which is more the light bit of stretching, the restorative piece. And then in the evening, I will do a full, usually it's something like the 34, maybe not all 34, but most of them, most evenings. And it might just be on the rug in front of the fire with children and the chaos of life around me, or it might be with some gentle music in the background, or it might be actually with my teacher online. And some of the classes that I do, they disappear after a week. So if I don't catch that class, I've missed it. So with my teacher, she just puts it out for a week and then it's gone. And I have terrible FOMO, fear of missing out. I honestly have to. And it's the same, I think, for lots of people. So I motivate other people by saying what we're going to do next week. What are we building up to? And then if you miss, you know you're missing out on that piece or accessing that movement or that exercise. So yes, I think that accountability, and there's lots more we can talk about accountability too.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because I went to I'm calling it a road class, just this one I don't normally go to on Saturday, and it was a new routine.
Yeah.
It was a new routine. So, but I felt like, oh, well, that's good then, because I haven't missed out on what they were building up to before, and I've come into the first
that's
class.
great.
So that was really good. So delving a little bit deeper into motivation, I found 3 words which define motivation. They really resonated with, and they were needs, values, and goals. And I started to think about those words in relation to Pilates and how Pilates might help us meet our needs, how it can align with our values and help us move quite literally towards our goals. So what I'd really like to do in this episode is go through each of those 3 words, needs, values, and goals, and explore how they relate to Pilates and how considering them and thinking about them can help us with our motivation. So let's start off with the first one, which was needs, and thinking about specifically how Pilates might meet our needs, especially at this time of year. So for me, the 3 needs it's meeting,
I love it.
top of mind, they're quite basic, are, I would say, getting out of the house. I like to come to the studio. I like to leave the
house, because you work at home too, and so many people are working at home, and we're missing that interaction with other people. So that's great.
It's part of the ceremony for me, the coming to Pilates, and the second I've talked about loads on previous episodes, I'm ironing out the aches and pains of what is quite a sedentary working life. It's that. And then the third is one that you mentioned previously, is social. You know, I go to quite a regular reformer class. It's usually the same core of people, and we have a good catch up when we meet, and it's nice to see some familiar faces. So that's kind of my top 3. But for you, what needs is Pilates meeting for you now?
It's so interesting, just to follow up on what you were saying about, for you, the ritual aspect of it. And I know a lot of people have a ritual around coming and doing their class, and I'm surprised that didn't come up in the definitions, because actually that's a huge part of motivation, is meeting that ritual, and what we need as humans is those rituals. So for me personally, I need to be in community with other people, being at home, not getting out of the house. And, you know, I enjoy doing my practice at home, but it's actually still in community, because I talk to other people about the class that we've been working on. Even with my students, so I have a group of coaching, so they're teachers that I coach on a regular basis, and we actually pick a class that we're going to do together from an online platform that we all subscribe to. So we are holding each other accountable. We're talking like really giddily about the lovely experiences that we're getting from doing the class. So even although I'm not in the room, we're still in community about the class. So it's really, I thrive on being with people. And so the other piece for me is getting to teach. That's me being in connection and community with people, which is hugely important. So
What about for your clients? And I'm thinking specifically, do you see specific needs that you would say are seasonal?
So I think one of the things really is, you know, what do you need to be able to do now in this moment? And then what do you need to be able to do in the future? So for example, I don't know whether it's a seasonal thing or what, there's a lot of pregnant ladies at the moment in my world.
Breeding season.
Oh my goodness, I hadn't even thought of it like that. So we have a lot of pregnant women. And so what I'm doing, because their needs are to give birth, to have a pain-free pregnancy, to give birth, to then recover well afterwards. So that's a very specific set of needs that we are working on. And, you know, when you're pregnant and you're growing this beautiful being within you, you need to keep making space for it so that you're comfortable and you're pain-free, and so that you can deliver the baby. So we're doing that, and also training the body for the birthing experience, and lots of education on that. So that's definitely for right now and for the future needs, which I think is really, really important. And then I think for, you know, seasonally, there's lots of things like being able to move differently in the different footwear, which I know sounds crackers, but I see a lot of people who go from, you know, like Birkenstock sandals or whatever into buttoned up, zipped up, restrictive boots and footwear that's very different to that. So then I've got lots of people complaining of foot and ankle issues, knee and hip issues, all coming up from the feet. So we're spending a lot of time now concentrating on footwork, concentrating on how we can combat that. So, and I have seen that for a long time as we go from sort of summer into winter. And then for me, I guess the other things would be, you know, when I do my own practice, mindfulness is a big thing.
Okay.
And
tell me a bit more about that.
Well, I think when we're doing Pilates, you're not able to think about all sorts of other things. Like you said, you know, you're counting the 100, or I'm checking my form, I'm using the visual imagery to help me to really embody what I'm doing. So it's, for me, it really is a mindfulness practice, because it helps me to shut off the world. And then I come out of that practice feeling so much more ready, you know, like I can do this. These short days, I can fit all the things in these short days because I've had that mindfulness experience. And I do think a lot of people find that. We joke about it often in classes where, you know, you can't think about your shopping list because there's too many things in your body you've got to think about. You know, that's your shopping list. You're going through your alignment.
So it sounds like it's quite empowering.
Hugely empowering. For me, I think, and I hope for people that I teach, it's giving command of your body. So I love that I can, you know, teaser on a rock somewhere at the drop of a hat, because my body is my own. And I love that. And I don't think I would have that if I didn't have Pilates.
Yeah, I can really understand that. And that my one is I can stand on one leg and bend my foot back when the children can't do it. That's the real one for me. And touching my toes.
Oh yeah, that's a win.
I don't know what.
And I think some of the other things that I remember back in the day when I began, there was a sort of cycle of, you know, must get bikini ready, you know, all that.
Oh yeah.
We're so beyond bikini ready approach to this now. Yes, it might help us to feel bikini ready, but it's so not about that.
Well, you've got to start earlier, haven't you, than just going a few months before you're
correct. Because for me, I mean, this is kind of going into the values bit, but it's so much more about prevention. What can we do to look after this amazing body that we have that will help us to live in it healthily and well for a long time, and prevent injuries and ailments. So yes, there we go.
Talking of which, let's talk a little bit about Christmas excess, which we know is coming up. You know, let's face it, Christmas isn't just a day, is it anymore? It's a month.
I feel like it started already.
Yeah, well, it has. The Christmas trees are up in the shops. I've gone past some houses with Christmas trees in it when it's late November. And for most of us, the overeating starts fairly soon and doesn't really let up till the new year. And for anyone in the US, we've just passed Thanksgiving too. So I remember a few years back, I think it was over the Christmas break, you did some short online Pilates.
Oh, I did.
Sessions, in between Christmas and New Year through the holiday season. Yeah. And one of those sessions was around digestion. Now, that was real news to me. Can Pilates really help with digestion? How can it help us with that very real need at this time of year?
Oh my goodness, for sure. I mean, what we have to remember is that Pilates is actually stimulating all systems of our body, all of them. Digestion is one piece of that puzzle. If you think about the movements that we are doing, where you're twisting, you're sitting up, you're lying down, all of these movements are massaging your internal organs. We do things like single leg stretch, where one leg stretches and the other one bends. We do scissoring, one leg's up, one leg's down, even doing footwork and jumping on the jump board, on the reformer. All of these things are stimulating your internal systems to digest food and help you to clear out toxins. So often what happens, you know, people finish class and they're all rushing out to the loo. They don't have a pelvic floor or bladder problem. They've just flushed out their system, which has allowed them to go and get rid of the waste, the toxins.
Question for you. So I do a class later on at night and I go home and go to bed. Generally, don't drink, because obviously then I'll be up in the night. I know your thumbs down on that. Would you recommend drinking after a Pilates class?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Well, because you're flushing out the toxins, you're also you're moving fluids around your body. So in all of the connective tissue in our body, you're moving around, which is helping to generate more fluid. But if you haven't got fluid to move around, then you're not going to get as much benefit. It's like, you know, you go for a massage, and they say to you, drink water after.
Do it after massage.
It's a movement massage.
It's really interesting. I need to think about that a little bit. Because I've done Pilates for years and years. Never have I had water.
Literally, you are moving all of the tissue in your body. You're moving your body against the mat or against the apparatus. You're getting that mechanical feedback from the equipment or the mat. You're getting the feedback of yourself to yourself in a lot of the movements as well. When you're holding your head, you're grabbing your leg, doing all these things. So of course, you're stimulating.
Well, it makes sense when you say it.
Of course.
Going back to the Christmas excess.
Yes.
What sorts of things, if I can't get to a class, is there anything that I should be doing at home?
Well, one of my favorite movements, it just makes me laugh every time, because one of my teachers used to always say, don't worry, ladies, gas may pass. Because it was designed to help to move the gases out of your system.
So better to be at home.
So better to be at home. And it's just where you basically lie on your back, hug your knees in and roll like a ball forwards and back.
Roll like a ball. Be the ball. You are the ball.
Exactly. So rolling like a ball is a great one. Okay. And the other one that's really great that we talked about already is the single leg stretch. Yeah. Where you hug one knee in towards your chest, the other one's stretched out, your head's off the floor, and you switch one leg to the other. Yeah. If you've got osteoporosis though, so if you're listening thinking, oh, I need that for my digestion, if you have osteoporosis, leave your head and shoulders down and just do the legs, pump the legs quite rapidly, one bending, one stretching, one bending, one stretching.
And the motivation for that around Christmas would be better digestion, flushing out any toxins.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
Excellent.
Brilliant. So I read somewhere that there are 4 types of motivation. Here they are. So incentive motivation, fear motivation, power motivation, and social motivation. And I guess in relation to the needs motivation that we were talking about, one of the immediate incentives for me, if I'm honest, so we're talking incentive motivation, is that your studio, it's the social, but also that a class is cheaper if you book a block of 10. So in the name of economies of scale, that's what I do after I pay full price for my first 2. And then I'll book the 10 classes straight to motivate me to go, because they're already booked. I know if I cancel a class in 24 hours, I'll lose my money. And that's quite a short-term motivation. But for those days where I'm just not feeling it, I might finish work and think, oh, I don't want to go out again, or I can't be bothered, or it works. I've booked, I've paid, I'm going, and I rarely, I can, in the years that I've been doing Pilates, I think 1 or 2 classes I've missed.
And I think you've missed any.
No, I have in the very early days, I think. So what other incentive motivations might there be to keep a consistent practice of Pilates?
I think you're so right. I think for a lot of people, we have to make the financial and time commitment. That's a huge piece of it. I know in my experience with people doing Pilates that pain, a lot of people are in pain, and pain returns if you don't do the Pilates. And sometimes people have to not do the Pilates to remember how much the Pilates was actually helping them. Because, I did a talk on Instagram recently about how we all know, it's drummed into us as children that you brush your teeth at least twice a day. We understand why. You could ask any adult, any child, they know why you need to brush your teeth. Our body as a whole needs that same level of attention, because if you don't brush your teeth, you get calcification. Same thing in your body. You get stuck and stiff and just sticky in your body, and you can't move as well and as freely. That then leads to pain. So we need to, but pain is a huge motivator, huge incentive and motivator for people. So that, for sure. And then it's like the problems that you were having start to return. So for people, it might be, like I had a chap whose golf improved like off the chart. Like he had to go into I don't really understand golf, but his handicap improved.
Yeah.
And so he ended up in this whole other team of people, and it was
Pilates.
And that was it.
Golf and Pilates.
Huge.
Interesting.
So then when he stopped for a bit, what happened? Golf game not so good.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So whatever the problem might be that's solved by Pilates, if you don't do it, it comes back.
Yeah, and I think we all know that, don't we, from having missed, you don't know because you've never missed, but if people that I know that would go to classes, and I know when we come back, well, I wish it's 2 weeks and I'm feeling it now. And
the other bit of that too that I've noticed recently, and I noticed it this week, is that the cognitive part of it,
right?
Because like you were saying, you're in a flow and you're doing a class and you're building up each week, and I teach in that way too. And then if you miss a bit and you come back, you've got to tap into that bit of your brain again to be able to catch up and to put the pieces together and coordinate yourself. Whereas the coordination is just there to take when you're doing it consistently, and that coordination spills into everyday life, and it's hugely important. Coordination and dexterity.
Definitely. So the second one, which was the social motivation, I can really relate to in terms of my needs. As I said, I'm mostly homework, and in many respects I do really miss the face-to-face contact. I thrive on it, and even in a class environment where there might not be that much chat, I inherently like being with people, sharing the experience of the class. So going to class is a bit of a no-brainer for me. I always feel better, not only from the Pilates itself, but also from the social interaction. In fact, I have just booked on your studio's Christmas event.
Oh, yeah.
Class and a glass for that very reason. And I've just spent some time trying to convince Chirpy Joe, who was on an earlier episode,
love it too.
Yeah, to come. I've read a bit about it, it looks fab, but can you tell me a little bit more about the concept behind it? What would motivate someone to attend something like that, and how might it meet our needs, especially at this time of year?
Yeah, so I mean, the Christmas class in a glass is about bringing people together with all levels of experience. So it's really there to invite, so you could bring your mum. It's bringing all of the people in our worlds together. So all of the movement experiences are accessible to everyone. It's very calming. So when you arrive, everybody gets a candle. So you've got this way of marking the zone. I call it the zone that you're in with your candle. And then we have a social bit built into the middle of the event. So we've got conversation starters for everybody, so that you might bring your mum, but then your mum meets somebody else when she's there. And so we're creating an opportunity to build relationships, because community is really, really important to a lot of people. And actually, it's one of the core values of our business. So we cultivate it everywhere we can within the way that we teach a group class, to special events that we put on for that. And one of the things that I'm planning for next year, which I haven't told anybody about yet, so we're just going to have an exclusive. I'm actually starting a pelvic health cafe, so we can come together and have some experts and some conversation, opening up a safe space for women to talk about pelvic health. But we'll talk about that another time. But just extending that kind of really important value.
Preview. And we will put some info about Class in a Glass into the show notes for anyone who wants to come. Which brings us on to the next definition of motivation, and you mentioned it there, which is our values. And this one I struggled with a little bit more. I was thinking about Pilates in relation to my values, Pilates and values, Pilates, and I know your values are really strong. So can you tell me a little bit more about how Pilates aligns with your values? And I feel like you're going to have a lot to say on this, so go.
I mean, it's just such a big priority to me that the things that I believe in. So that's just, values are just the things that you believe in, what's important to you. So everything that I do with the studio is aligned to really my own core values, which have spilled into the business values too. And community is something I think that has gotten a little bit lost, and it's something that deserves to be cultivated and supported. And so community is massively important, where we can connect people. I just love connecting people. So when somebody comes, so yesterday I had two ladies in a gym, and I said, your children are in the same class at school. This is such and such's mum. This is such and such a mum. Connection made, conversation, warm feeling, nice sort of dynamic that was created there. I had two ladies who came postnatal. Babies were born within like 24 hours of each other. They both had a similar experience, made the connection. They're, what are we, 6-7 years now, I think, later. They're best friends. The boys are best friends. It's brilliant. So it creates opportunities for connections and community to be fostered and built on. Because, I'm not from Leeds, and most of the people that I know in Leeds are not from Leeds. And so we need to build our own community. We need to choose and yeah, like I say, cultivate that. So community, I mean, I could go on obviously, I feel like community could be a theme of its own. But obviously, another one of my values is prevention, which we mentioned before as well. And I really, really believe that we have an opportunity to look after our bodies so that we understand what's going on with it, so that we can monitor any changes too. So if you don't know, if you haven't felt and sensed your body, how can you measure change? It's like the campaigns to check your breasts, okay? We get it, we see it in a changing room, we go, oh yeah, must do that. What about the rest of your body? Have you sensed or felt your abdomen? Have you looked at your pelvic floor? We've talked about that before. I know I'm going to keep bringing it up. But, you know, all of that education about our body and feeling our body in a Pilates environment is a great place to learn yourself so that you can monitor change and prevent things for sure. And then, you know, another value for me is reliability. Really important that we can rely on ourselves to show up and do the Pilates, so that we're accountable to ourselves to show up and do the Pilates, and that then triggers in our brain that we are reliable, and that we do the things that we say we're going to do, and then we do more of the things that we want to do, and it becomes this like snowball effect, and you can achieve more and more. And I say to, you know, a lot of the teachers that I work with that say to me, you can just do so much. It's because I can rely on myself. I have, once I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do that thing. So I've said out loud, I'm going to do the pelvic health cafe. So you can be sure that's going to happen.
Yeah. I can really see that in you, actually. Yeah. So the third definition of motivation, I think, is linked to what you were just talking about, and that's the goals.
Oh, yeah.
So I can relate to that a little bit more, even if it's goals that haven't necessarily articulated anywhere. I know that by doing Pilates is going to help me reach longer term goals, like good mobility in later life. And that's also related to the concept of that fear. Motivation, being fearful that I might not be able to live a full life with basically my body packs up. But I guess we also might have shorter term goals for achieving certain Pilates exercises, and I've definitely had these with exercises like teaser.
Oh yeah.
And I remember I couldn't do a roll up for ages. I was in like special measures with the stretchy band.
Special measures, I love it.
So it was a real goal to be able to do those. And the problem is with Pilates goals, I feel like the parameters move. So it never becomes easy.
It becomes different, doesn't it?
Yeah, it becomes different. So you might add on to an exercise, or you might do a slightly more, what I would deem to be a more advanced version. Am I right on that?
Top. I mean, it goes back to what we're saying about learning your body. So every time you do the roll up, if we use that example, you're experiencing it differently, because all of the things that you've done that day before you do your roll up is in your body and needs to be ironed out. So you're not necessarily ever doing the same roll up.
Yeah.
So it's not even, yes, we might add something for flavor and fun and keep the grey matter stimulated too. And that's not the only way that you can evolve and get more out of that movement. You know, you can slow it down, you can speed it up, you can add a band, you can use a magic circle, whatever. And ultimately, can you have command of yourself in that moment, in that roll up?
And I'm interested in that idea of power being related to motivation too. Do you think that's about having agency over your goals, or about actually feeling that power when you're practicing Pilates, or maybe a bit of both?
I think it's definitely a bit of both. I think agency is a huge piece. I think that the having command of your own body allows you to achieve the goals, because if you haven't got command of your body, you can't feel what it is that's holding you back from reaching the teaser. you know, when I'm working with, and I had somebody today who she knew her teaser, just there was a balance piece that, you know, and I always say, you know, it's all about the teaser timing. There's this coordination in it that you have to have, and it's just a joyous feeling when it's there. And she knew that there was something off with the timing. But if she hadn't got command of her own body, she wouldn't have known that the timing was off. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So it's definitely both of those things.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So what are your goals for Pilates? Do you have short-term goals, long-term goals? Because even for me, like, you're never done, are you, with an exercise? You never got it, because you might get it one day and the next day, like you say, you're different in your body. So just thinking about your own goals, short-term and longer term, how do you use them to motivate you?
Gosh, it's really interesting, because I guess I can't imagine not doing Pilates every day. So it's not even so much, I mean, it's definitely prevention and blah, 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 all of those things ultimately, but the goal, it's just, I'm just in such a strong rhythm and routine with it. It's the ritual. Like, I feel like I can't sleep if I haven't done it, you know, and because I have that reliability value, if I say I'm going to do Pilates and then I don't do it, I'm like, I'm not a trustworthy person, because I didn't do the thing I said I would do.
Yeah.
So I'm really in that rhythm. And, you know, I feel it. If I had some time off and I didn't do my teasers and all my things, I can feel my flexibility wanes. It is something that has to continually be worked on. And when, you know, if I miss a day, I know it reminds me of how much it's giving me, which is why I know for other people, they know when they miss it, they know what it's what they're missing out on.
Yeah. So I mentioned I usually go to a weekly regular classes, same people. I'm a bit hooked on reformer at the moment, but that said, one of the things that really motivates me sometimes is to mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
You know, especially if I feel like I'm stagnating or maybe going through the motions a little bit. So last Saturday morning, I went to a reformer class with a different teacher, different group of people. And you know what? It was Saturday morning. It really set me up for the weekend. I felt great. And it can be a completely different experience doing a class, I think, in the morning or the evening. I normally go for evening, and I went for the morning. So my question is that as a teacher, would you recommend mixing things up a bit, or is it better to stick with what you know in terms of class and teacher?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good question. I mean, variety is the spice of life, isn't it? And none of us want to get stuck in a rut, but also repetition helps us to feel and grow and develop that command. So it's like super tricky. What I would say is that different teachers will support you and your needs in different ways. So one teacher might just have the cue, the image, the exercise that's going to be the eureka that you've been seeking because of their values, their perspective on the world, their experiences. So there's a lot to gain from being taught by another teacher, really a lot to be gained. And I think also it comes down to the connection, the bond, the dynamic that you have. And I think, you know, it really can be like Marmite, because I always say, I am not the teacher for everyone. No way am I the teacher for everyone. But those people who want to be taught by me in my way, they all gravitate towards me. Those that want to be taught in a different way will gravitate to another teacher. And once you build that relationship and bond, then there becomes there's a lot of the unspoken things, or the things like, you'll know when I'm saying something that is meant for you in the class.
100%. 100%.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And so that then allows for a more rapid progression, a more rapid just a more rapid progression because it happens, that connection is there. So yeah,
you're absolutely right about
one.
because you do, when you do find the right teacher or teachers for you, and I always say that's when I got Pilates, but you just know, and it's not necessarily for reasons you can put your finger on,
It's
and
not.
there's not necessarily anything wrong with the teacher that you don't particularly want to go to that class. It's just not there, and I do think it's
What
something to do
motivates you?
with and something to do with energy, I reckon, for me as well. So when you're a teacher like you, and you did mention it at the start of the podcast, do you also need a teacher or a mentor? How have you found this?
Oh,
and
this
how
is
has it changed
huge.
over time?
Changed over time. Oh my goodness, completely changed over time because I mean, I still have mentoring and do all sorts of things, of course, and it changes over time because when you work on a specific thing, like I did my master mentorship with Lolita, and at the time, so Lolita San Miguel was certified by Joseph Pilates to continue his work. Only 2 people were, and she's the only one surviving. She's amazing, and I love her. I owe her so much. She's in her 80s and still practicing. It's amazing. So when I worked with her, I felt like having her as a mentor, doing the master mentorship, all of that program, I felt like that was the thing. That was the big whatever, the finale. It couldn't get bigger, or I couldn't do more than that. And then at the end of my mentorship, I had to do a thesis and a presentation. After my presentation, her and Lillian, her assistant, came and spoke to me at the end, and they said, you have to present this work. You need to get out there and present this at the Pilates Method Alliance for our community of teachers and get it out there. This is such important work. And it was in that moment that I realized that that wasn't the end, that there was another stage. So I then went and got mentoring on how to do presentations and yada, yada. And then I did that. And then I did more mentoring that then came out of that thing. So it just becomes, okay, well, what's the next skill set that I need to go and work on and learn? And who is great at that I can get support with? Then I just go to them. And you just go to the next and the next.
That's brilliant, because you could have just done that mentorship and then been, oh, done it now, bit of an anticlimax. Like, I've got there. Oh, bored now. What can I do next?
Absolutely.
But that's so good that you actually it has snowballed into something that's grown
massively. And it was that moment that really set forth this process of all. I mean, the amount of education and mentoring that I've had since that point is just ludicrous.
Amazing.
So I don't think I'd really appreciated until then just what I'm capable of and how much more I can do. So
that what didn't end up being the pinnacle, did it?
I've just hired a new mentor for a big thing next year too.
Wow. So watch this space. And you mentioned as well that you also do a class. You are a customer in someone else's class.
Oh yes, I mean, so I
never occurred to me.
Of course. So I do. I mean, I absolutely love to do different styles of Pilates too and get broad experience. So I do lots of different people's classes. But my main classes is with my friend and teacher in Las Vegas, Leslie Logan, who's amazing. So yes.
That's really interesting. So let's end the episode as we always do with Claire shares 3 pearls of wisdom. What are the 3 things that you would say to your Pilates customers to keep them motivated, especially at this time of year?
Oh yes. I mean, the first thing I would say is build in accountability, whether that be book a class with a friend or whether that be pay for a block of 10 and book them in. So you've got the financial accountability, but build in accountability, because all of us, if you're getting home from work and it's dark, it is very tricky to get up and go out again.
Yep.
So doing something ahead of time that because you want to do the class, to do something ahead of time so that your future self goes, oh yes, that's it. That's the accountability that I needed. And then somehow can you attach it to life, something that can be improved in your life by doing it, or some way of attaching it to another routine in life. So is it that you do it immediately after dropping a kid off at karate, or some way of making it so even if it's not your ideal class, but you're out anyway. So
it becomes almost like a routine.
Exactly. So I would definitely say that. And then also, can we just make it fun? Because who's going to adhere to anything if it's not pleasurable and fun to do? Your Pilates is like going to the playground when you were a child, but this is the playground for grown-ups. So make it fun.
Oh, that's been so great. And I think it can really help to articulate what might motivate us, especially at this time of year when we might find motivation to do the things that we inherently know are good for us starts to wane. So thank you so much, Claire. I feel very motivated now.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Hopefully our listeners will too. And we'll be continuing with the theme of motivation in our next episode. And I look forward to sharing more then. In the meantime, let us know what you think of this episode. Like, share, do all the things you know you need to do to help other people find us. And we'd really love you to let us know if there's anything you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Thank you so much for listening. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.